Hi there. Welcome to Needed Conversations. This is Ryan and Victoria Cole.
Hello there.
We're excited that you've joined us. We're in a series talking about spicy sex. And if you think this is a series just about the actual act of sex, then you're mistaken, because obviously sex is much more than that physical act in the bedroom. But we're talking about everything that leads up to the bedroom, everything that adds spice to your relationship, so that when you do have sex with your spouse, that it's more fulfilling, satisfying, you feel closer, you receive comfort. All of these principles that we're talking about are in our latest book, Spicy Sex. And if you have not gotten your copy, you can do so right now at moremostforever.com. moremostforever.com. You can get the physical copy like we've got right here, or you can get the ebook. And that's so exciting, right?
Yes. Last week we talked about blend marriage or blend relationship, and we know that it takes spices to really create a nice meal that tastes really good. And so what we want to bring to you guys is a lot of different elements that come into play when it comes to marriage and a relationship, and how they work simultaneously to give you guys both satisfaction, not only physically but also internally, where you feel at peace and you have that soulful connection as well. Again, like Ryan said, it's not only like a physical connection and just a satisfaction part and what can I get out of this, but it's where you guys can find this partnership, which we're kind of going to talk about this today, which is true partnership, and what does that sound like, and what does that look like in a marriage?
Yeah, and before we jump into that conversation, I want to let you know that this week, this Friday, Victoria and I are going to be launching our Marriage Revival Tour, and we're starting this tour off in Atlanta, Georgia.
That's right.
So if you are in the Atlanta, Georgia area, we're going to be there Friday night for a free service. We're going to have teaching, and it's going to be fun, and there's going to be worship. And then we are also going to be staying over, and Saturday morning, we're going to do a very special workshop for all married couples. Or if you're engaged, you're welcome to come as well. But you can go online at marriagerevivaltour.com and get all of the information, marriagerevivaltour.com. So if you're in Atlanta, Georgia this week, and we are going to be in your city, so don't miss the opportunity to stop by and see us, pick up some of our resources, and experience a revival in your marriage. So that's this Friday, March the 4th, 2022, if you're listening to this podcast later. And we're going to be announcing other dates soon as well. If you want the Marriage Revival Tour to come to your city and you want to find out how you can help make that happen, shoot us a text at 864-428-7131. 864-428-7131. This is our personal line. You can get in touch directly with us about the Marriage Revival Tour, but hey, you can text us about anything marriage related or purpose related, or questions about God and faith. And this is us who is actually responding. This is a ministry that we have. It's a mini counseling line, if you want to call it. It's more like coaching instead of like therapeutic type counseling. But I have had people text me just this week asking about their relationship, their dating. How do I know if this is going anywhere, or how do I know when to walk away? And was able to give this person really good response. Have had people text us about challenges in their marriage, from infidelity to communication problems, and we've been able to respond and give them real-time solutions, and also lead them to some of our other resources that could potentially help them grow together as a couple. So yeah, the Marriage Revival Tour.
It's going to be incredible.
And we're going to be with our good friends, Pastors Chris and Nita Daigle.
Yes.
And they've been married a long time, and they have a lot of wisdom concerning marriage. They have 3 wonderful kids, grown now.
And they just became grandparents, so
yes.
I'm sure that they're so excited about that as well. Growing family.
That's right. And phenomenal worship there at New Covenant. And so you're going to experience the presence of God and get transformation in your marriage too. But today we are talking about your marriage being a partnership. And I think that this is where a lot of people get it wrong in the dating process. They approach it backwards, right? Is there physical attraction? Then do we have anything in common? And then lastly, Are they saved? Do they love God? Do they have a relationship with God? We should flip that. And that's what we teach couples to do in the dating process, is making sure that you have a strong spiritual foundation. And then the core of this compatibility equation is the soulful realm. And that deals with whether you're intellectually compatible, whether or not you have common purpose, that you are people of vision, and that your marriage is actually going somewhere. Because the fact of the matter is, if you don't have a vision for your marriage, you're going to end up with a superficial relationship. And that superficiality is going to definitely extend into the bedroom.
Yes.
Since we're talking about sex, a lot of people want to know how to make sex better. Well, you don't just deal with what's physically going on in the bedroom in that very moment. You have to, unravel what's happening in the marriage as a whole, because, what doesn't come first is good sex equals good marriage. That doesn't happen. Even if you're experiencing a climax and some kind of physical pleasure, which is very possible, that doesn't mean you have a healthy marriage at all. But I've not heard of a healthy marriage outside of the bedroom who also doesn't have a good, sexual relationship as well. Mm-hmm. Now, I understand that there are physical challenges that some people experience when it comes to sex and all of that. And there are ways around that, because sex isn't just about that, one moment where you connect in the right place. You know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. Trying to be discreet for anyone who's listening to this, maybe even with children around. But, there's a lot of different ways you can experience pleasure in the bedroom. But the fact of the matter is, a healthy marriage doesn't start there. A healthy marriage starts in the place of your soul. Mm-hmm. And whether you're connecting on an emotional level, whether you feel like you are married to a life partner and somebody who's interested in purpose, in the same way that you are.
Yeah, I think a partnership, one of the key elements in partnership is communication. And I think that we start off pretty good. When we're dating, we tend to be so focused on one another. We tend to communicate a lot more than once we become married and life hits us hard. We just kind of press the go button and we're just cruising through. And now it's feeling like we're roommates. And so it's so important for us to communicate, learn to communicate that. And of course it takes time, because we learn how to approach the person, how a person responds, what their upbringing is, or what is the lens that they view life from, because that affects everything and how you communicate to one another. And a lot of times people resort to not talking through certain things because they just feel like it's hard. It always brings conflict. It brings about, issues, and you always feel like that, there's no resolution and I don't want to be in this fight. So I would rather not talk about it at all. And so we kind of start cruising through life where we just kind of allow things to go as they go without talking through what you like, what you dislike, what you need help in, what you don't need help in. So we have a lot of assumption. And so I think that one of the key elements in partnership is definitely communication, and that needs to start from the very beginning. And again, like I said, you start learning each other and how to communicate effectively, not just necessarily just spewing out what you really feel, but really learning to communicate together effectively.
And Victoria and I have discussed this. Communication is like the key to marriage, but nobody tells you how to communicate better. And so stay tuned to our podcast. We're going to do an entire series coming up soon on communication and how to communicate better with your spouse. Some of it has to do with trigger words that set off your spouse. And if you haven't unraveled each other's past and understand even areas of trauma, then you wouldn't understand why certain words or certain tones just push them away. The other thing is timing. I think that this is just a small little snippet into what we will discuss when it comes to communication. But, if your spouse has just come home from work and 5 minutes later you're unloading on them, and when I say unloading, complaining about all of the things that they haven't done, that they aren't to you in the relationship, how do you think they're going to respond? You know, we have to be intentional about communication, but we also have to be intentional about the timing as well. And that's, to me, why date nights are so important.
Yeah.
That if you're not dating, if you're not having drives where you're in the car alone, where you turn off all the technology, you know, it could be as simple as that. Some of the best conversations Victoria and I have been on road trips, whether we were going to a ministry event or, you know, my parents live 30 minutes away. So last night we dropped off the kids and were able to drive home, and it was 30 minutes of us just talking. And you need that as a couple, especially if you have kids.
Yeah.
You know,
and just getting to know one another. And, you know, we as human beings, you know, we are hopefully growing and maturing every single day. So it's ignorant of us to say that I've married a person, I've gotten to know them, I know everything there is to know about them. And so I know their triggers, I know, you know, everything that they're going to do and everything they're going to say. And that's ignorant, because as we experience different life experiences, we are going to have our life's lens shaped in that way. Like if we're going through trauma, if we're losing people, if, you know, we're having children, or there's problems with your children, there's always going to be things that you're going to be more focused on, and that really starts shaping the person the person that you are. And if you don't communicate that with your spouse, then you're going to be really disconnected from one another. That's the true fact of it is. And it's hard for you to be honest. That's the truth too, because if you don't communicate with one another, then there's no honesty. And so whenever you don't have honesty, then there's assumption. And then what you end up doing, what we've talked about yesterday with Ryan, is that a lot of people start turning to their friends and family members before they even talk to their spouses about a certain issue. So now you're putting your spouse in a negative limelight. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't seek counsel, but what I'm saying is you should first run to your spouse and try to, you know, talk through the issues. And if you are having issues talking through just with your spouse, bring in a mediator. I mean, we have done that with people, and just having a third party that is not your family member, and that won't be taking sides, brings so much relief in a marriage where they feel like they can openly talk to a person and express to them exactly what they've been feeling. And I think that a lot of men and women experience like this aha moment, like, wow, I've never known that that's what my spouse is experiencing until now, because I have now understood what they're expressing to me. And it's not an attack on me. They're just expressing what they're feeling. And how can I step up to help them in this situation? And how can I support them? And how can we work together as partners, not fighting against one another, but be jointed and united in that front, regardless of what issues come about?
Yeah, and that's why we're talking about the P in the word spicy. This is an acronym that we used in the book Spicy Sex, and the P represents three words. It's partnership, procreation, and prophetic activation. And the one P that we made sure not to include was perfection. There is no perfect partnership.
Yes.
I think that if you're expecting perfection in the relationship, you're putting undue stress. And if also you're comparing your spouse to someone else's spouse, or your Hollywoodized, or, you know,
previous relationships,
any preconceived notion about what you feel like a spouse should be, then you're imposing undue weight and stress upon the relationship. And in order to experience a more fulfilling sex life, you have to understand that sex is a culmination of the partnership that you have with one another. I want to read this excerpt from this chapter in the book Spicy Sex. It's called The Supernatural Side of Sex. It says, sex is more than just a physical act. It's a supernatural expression that engages your spirit, soul, and body. When you have sex with your spouse, it is a culmination of all that you have talked about, all the dreams you have, all you hope to do with your life, and the impact you want to leave behind. It's a divine consummation that places a seal on the covenant you have made with each other and God. Yes, the physical act of sex is the way that we procreate and are able to have children, but there's another layer to procreation that goes beyond just yielding your body to produce a child. This kind of procreation deals with the culture and values that you are creating together with your spouse and passing on to the next generation. And I want to stop here because the fact of the matter is, if sex is a culmination of that partnership and it extends to a prophetic realm, right? If sex is supernatural, then if you aren't dreaming together, if you aren't strategizing together, if you aren't constantly communicating with one another about where you're at and where you're going and how you feel in the process, whether you're overwhelmed or underwhelmed, you might be overwhelmed with so much going on, or you might be underwhelmed with the state of your marriage. But if you're not communicating that, there's no way for that to culminate with good sex in the bedroom. And even when you are going through an underwhelming season, just the fact that you can open up to one another and be transparent about where you're at leads to better sex, because there's trust and vulnerability. And the main thing here that we lead to in this chapter in talking about partnership that leads to procreation is in Genesis chapter 1, when God created the man and the woman, and he said to them, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, subdue, and have dominion. The first thing he told the couple to do was have sex. And he said it 3 different times in 3 different ways. It's almost like he said the same thing over and over again, because truth be told, the word multiply, replenish, and what was the third one? Be fruitful. Be fruitful, yeah. Multiply, and replenish. It's like the same word. But if you look at the original text and the context, that God never repeats himself without there being a specific reason as to why. Yeah. And there's an emphasis on 3 layers of procreation, because what you do, obviously, in the bedroom could yield a physical child, right? Mm-hmm. But what's more important than just having children is also having a vision that you are birthing together, that you are procreating in the earth, bringing the culture of heaven into your sphere of influence. And that means in your home that the values of the kingdom are present, so that when you do have a physical child, that they are raised with certain values and morals, and letting that culture extend out into your community, into your workplace, and that how you are outside of the home is a reflection of your family unit and the culture and the values that you hold dear. That's why sex is so important, that when you have sex, it's fun, it's exciting, it's pleasurable, but there is a supernatural component to it that brings the culmination of your agreement in that partnership to a head, to a focus. And that increases the intensity of the pleasure. If you go into that with that level of trust and vulnerability and reliance upon one another, and just a sense of satisfaction in the relationship outside of the bedroom, it's going to be better, more intense when you do have sex.
Yeah, I think God's seal is upon it. Even we hear in the scriptures is where 2 or more agree, there I am amongst them. And I think that's God emphasizing the fact that he is standing when 2 or more people agree. And so partnership is that agreement. And it's not to say that you're not going to have your opinions and maybe some things that you're still working through. We don't have a perfect marriage. We say that over and over again. We're still working through certain things. And time does not equal maturity. There's a constant pursuit and intentional effort to understand that person and see where they're coming from, and hearing what their dreams and desires are, and expressing yourself and what your dreams and desires are, and how can we fuse that together so that we can build a family that's united, so that when we have our children, we can also bring them into this mission and allow them to be a part of that. That's how we raise healthy individuals, and how Ryan was saying that procreation is so much more than just having children. It's really raising up your children in the way of the Lord, and the way of the Lord is that united front, that we are passing the word of God to our children and showing that and displaying that first and foremost between our relationship with one another. You know, we have our moments of arguing, and before, I remember we had an interview with Dr. Caroline Leaf, and we would be a little bit more discreet, I guess, with having disputes. And she was like, "Oh no!"
In front of our children.
In front of our children, yeah. And it's not to say that we would start screaming at each other, but it would be like intense moments of fellowship, I guess. And she said, "You know what? Most people want to hide that from their children, but it's very important for children to see that you guys do have issues that you guys are working through." And that it's not only you're spewing those things out, but you actually come to a resolve.
That you're, yes.
So that they don't feel like that the pressure of the world and there's issues with mom and dad and that they could be a problem.
It's not about shielding your children from the challenges, but it's showing them how you are working together to resolve them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I just said all that because, you know, a lot of times people can see our life and think that we have it all together and we have this wisdom that we have. And honestly, we're applying this wisdom every day. And just because we're having these conversations, I think it's important that we have these conversations for other people to hear. But this is something that we daily continue having, you know, whether it's on the drive, whether it's in the bathroom, while getting ready to go somewhere. We're constantly having those discussions and also learning to be honest with one another and vulnerable, so that we can support one another and really truly see what we're going through, you know, so that we can jump and be a support.
Yeah, I think that we're just a vessel that this, teaching and revelation is coming through. But I pick up this book myself and I start reading it and say, wow, did I really write that? And the truth is, it wasn't me. It was God working through Victoria and I to write the words in this book. But when I read it, I'm still having to address my own deficiencies and apply these principles every single day. And what we're really talking about with this topic today, and sex being a culmination of the partnership that you have with one another, and that out of the bedroom comes this culture that you build in your house, right? And I love the scripture that she said, anything you agree, Matthew 18:19, it shall be done by my Father in heaven. The power of agreement, but it actually says touch and agree.
Oh, okay.
And I know that is a scripture obviously we use in church as well, and it's applicable, right? But the home is a microcosm of the macrocosm, which is the church, right? The church was actually built on the blueprints of the marriage. The marriage came first, and God said, in the same way that I've structured the relationship between a husband and a wife, I'm going to structure the church as my bride, and I'm the groom. Jesus was the bridegroom. And so those scriptures, even when we look at it from that perspective, yes, we touch and agree in church, hold hands, lay hands on the sick. We believe God. We stand in agreement. But in your marriage, right, in the bedroom, you touch and agree. And you, in the act of sex, are bringing together your vision under one roof. And you're saying, I'm submitted to the leadership of the Holy Spirit in our life. And let me tell you, God blesses your sex relationship with your spouse in that process. And this is what we say to every couple. If you don't have a mission, your marriage is going to eventually crumble. A marriage with a mission is destined for great impact and long-term satisfaction and fulfillment. And actually, we're going to be hosting live. We did a virtual workshop last year called Marriage with a Mission, and it was great. We had people from around the United States in there, and it was exciting. But what we really wanted was to be with them face to face. So we are having an in-person workshop on April 9th, only a couple months away, and it's called Marriage with a Mission. I want you to join Victoria and I in downtown Greenville for a fun, interactive day. Downtown Greenville is one of the most beautiful cities. It's a romantic city, I think. There's so many restaurants here, but we are going to be meeting right in the heart of downtown Greenville, and we're going to be teaching you. We're going to be giving you workbooks where you can write a vision for your marriage, for your family, and the purpose that you both feel like you're called to fulfill. I've written this workbook in a really unique way, and you have to come to find out what I'm talking about. But it's you and your spouse writing a vision for your marriage, and it's only a one-day workshop. So you're going to come in the morning. It's going to be fun, interactive, and we are only accepting 7 couples. That's right, 7 couples. So if you want to register, go to moremostforever.com. Remember that website. That's the name of our social media as well, moremostforever.com. And click that banner that says Marriage with a Mission and sign up for our in-person workshop on April 9th in downtown Greenville. It's going to be exciting.
Yes, make it a date day. Like once we have the workshop, go out and have a date time and have that open discussion. And listen, if you're not here locally, if you're doing like a weekend getaway, this is a great time to do so too, because you can explore Greenville and have the time to actually spend with your spouse, but invest in your marriage. That's truly what's going to give you guys fulfillment and really equip you guys for success in your future.
Yeah, it's already been like 75 degrees here. It has some cold moments as well, but by the time April 9th rolls around, it's going to be so beautiful here. And spend the night. Even if you are coming locally, it might be good for you to just get a hotel room downtown. After the workshop is over that day, go to dinner together, walk the streets, and continue to have that conversation about your vision for your marriage. So also, before we leave, we always want to give the opportunity for anybody who would like to partner with us. We are a nonprofit. It's called Empowered Culture Ministries, and marriage and family is about 70% of our focus for that ministry. And so we have a large vision, and we need partners to see it come to pass so that we can continue to produce quality content, counsel couple, create events and resources so that your marriage can thrive. So give right now. Just go to moremostforever.com. There's a little donate button. It's a red button that pops up at the bottom. Click that and become a partner. You can give one time, or you can become a monthly partner for any amount. Some people give $10. Some people give $100, whatever you're able to give. And I'm asking you to stretch, not just for yourself, but for the next generation. These resources are going to impact your children as well. And so we're teaching single people how to date. And so this is a resource not just for you and your spouse, but for your children as well, so that they don't have to stumble through the mistakes that you made, and they can have a better foundation on which their marriage is built, so they don't have to unravel everything. So give now.
Yes, and we thank you for joining us for this episode of Needed Conversations. Hey, another way you can help us spread this word is just by giving us a review on the podcast. All you have to do is just scroll all the way down and just give us a 5-star review. Hopefully, you've enjoyed the information we've been giving you guys. And write us a little note. We love hearing from you guys. We love to hear what you guys have to say about this podcast, but it's also going to help us to be put at the top of the list in our category, which is marriage and relationship. And also share it with a friend. Maybe shoot a text to a friend who's struggling with a marriage or is married and you just want to enrich them. So that's a great way that you guys can participate in spreading this word.
All right. We'll see you on social media. And for this podcast, we'll see you next week.